If you spend any time on your phone, you've probably seen a million awful mobile game ads. Most of the games are very similar, simple, and the ads show someone failing an easy task to make you want to play it and do better. These games often get millions of downloads and generate millions of dollars for the companies, but are they difficult to make? The answer is obviously no, and I'll prove it by making one in not even one day from scratch. First, I opened Blender and made a few low poly models to use in my game. This took me about 7 minutes. Next, I used a simple script with only 3 lines of code to make an endless road. The road simply moves towards the camera, and when it goes all the way behind the camera, it teleports back to the end of the line. By simply adding a character doing a run animation, this gives the illusion from the camera that you are endlessly running on that road. Then, with only 4 more lines of code, I can add a chance to spawn spikes and attach it to the road. And with 2 lines of code in the player script, I can make the player get destroyed when touching the spikes. Once again, with very few code, you can get the player to move when you click and drag your mouse or finger. All of the input stuff is done by the engine, so we don't need to do anything about that. At this point, I wanted to recreate the infamous addition or multiplication banner you find in almost every mobile game ad nowadays. This turned out to be a bit harder than expected. I managed to get the banners to randomly generate a number and then create the correct amount of characters when you go through it. But placing the characters in a group took a bit more effort. Also, the game started lagging a bit when there were too many characters at once. And anyway, my character model was way too high quality for an awful game, so I replaced it with a classic big head one color stickman model. I made the roads get a little faster every time you went through a banner, and that gave an interesting result. So I had to put a max speed, and then I made the characters spawn in a circle form instead of one next to the other. The only thing I had left to do was to make the characters regroup after some of them were destroyed. But at this point it was almost time for the GMTK Game Jam, and I wanted to participate in it, so I had to prepare a little bit. So I took a few days of break from this project and I came back a few days later. I paused the timer during that time too. I think it's fair to say I still did it in one day because I didn't do anything towards this project in those few days I took for the Game Jam. But anyway, I was pretty much already done at that point and I was not even close to 24 hours. So I just went back and made the regroup mechanic by making all of the characters move slightly towards the middle, and then the collisions between the players, which are handled by the engine, so I don't have to do anything about this either, made them push each other and form a circle naturally. I also made the characters a bit smaller to allow the player to control more of them easily, because otherwise they would just fill the whole road and you couldn't move anymore. Since this is an endless runner with randomly generated stuff, I can't control the amount of characters very well. Most games with this style will have predefined levels, so they know if they put a +10 and then a ×2 and then the -15, then the player can't have more than 5 left. But in my case, since it's randomly generated, the player could get 3 × 3 in a row and end up with 1,000 characters, so I had to put a limit to 100. Otherwise it would lag out, and also the players would end up going so far forward you couldn't even see it anymore, so there's no point. Finally, I made it so the max speed of the road is higher, and also made it so the faster the road goes, the more chance of spike there is, and the less chance of a positive banner. This way, the game can get actually kind of hard. I also added a circle with spikes to have sort of 2 different obstacles, but they kind of have the same goal, so there's not really any point to that. These type of games will always be easy for most people. It's a casual game, it's not meant to be difficult. It's meant to be so that everyone can play it. I guess now the only thing I have left to do is to make an awful ad for my awful game to be a part of the club. I really don't get why these type of games get millions of downloads. In total, I had about 350 lines of code and 4 meshes only. I made it in not even 24 hours while taking breaks and not trying hard at all. These types of low quality games flooding the market is kind of sad, but at the end of the day, if people enjoy them, then so be it. Games are meant to be enjoyed. In conclusion, play whatever you want, but be aware that these type of games are very low quality, so maybe not worth putting your money into. But that's for you to judge.